Here is an ironic t-shirt. Here is a post-ironic t-shirt. Are you having trouble differentiating? Is the concept confusing you? Good. That's what post-ironic designers want you to feel.
I don't know what any of this is, and I'm f***ing scared.
I do want to actually give some semblance of understanding though, so let's take a step back. When I want to explain post-irony to someone, I show them this clip from Family Guy. So he falls, and that's funny. Then it goes on so long that it stops being funny. Then it keeps going even longer to the point where ideally it becomes funny once again. And that circular point of coming back around through layers of perception is post-irony in a nutshell. Now, tangentially, was me choosing Family Guy as an example here ironic? Do I actually think Family Guy is funny, or am I using it ironically because only an idiot would find it funny? My answer? Exactly. So let's take one more look at that clip, and I'll label irony and post-irony. Hopefully you're starting to catch my drift here. What he's doing is the same act, the same sound over and over, but how it's being perceived changes depending on both your interpretation and the intent of the creator. Maybe the best definition I've seen of both irony and post-irony, at least in the context we're talking about here, came from the YouTuber turned boxer iDubbbz of all people.
This is the circle of irony. At the top of the circle of irony, you have sincerity. Here's an example of a sincere thought. I don't like eating shit. The next rung on the circle of irony is just called irony. Basically just sarcasm. Oh yeah, I love eating shit. After irony, we have post-irony. This is where you say something in a way that makes it sound like you don't mean it when you actually do mean it. Probably the most popular form of irony in the modern generation. So you have to already know what irony is to appreciate or begin to appreciate post-ironic humor. And look, there's no more room on the circle, so we must be done. Meta-irony is placed intentionally in this circle in a way that doesn't make any sense because it is intertwined with sincerity. No, I don't like eating unless.
By the way, iDubbbz, I'm waiting for the content cop on Philip Plein. Just let me know when that's coming. So finally, let's bring this back to clothing. That's why you're here, right? You filthy animals, all you care about are clothes. Climate change? Nah, just clothes, homie. Anyway, here is a classic example of a t-shirt that would have been sold at mall stores like Spencer's Gifts or Hot Topic back in the early 2000s. I know you're probably not going to believe me when I say this, but people bought and wore shirts like this because they thought it was genuinely funny. I can attest to this because I was in middle school at the time and thought they were absolutely hilarious. As society moved into the 2010s, hipsterish type of people, they took to wearing these t-shirts in an ironic way. See, I've got a point here. So these hipsters were wearing them to signal to people, can you believe anyone thinks this is actually funny? And through that signal, it is funny in its own, now ironic way. Now, let's look at a Balenciaga t-shirt.
Balenciaga.
For those who don't know, Balenciaga is one of the biggest luxury brands in the world with prices that range from a few $100s to many thousands of dollars. For now, I'm going to completely sidestep the question of whether this is a good t-shirt design or not, because the entire point of the design is to confuse the issue of what a good design actually is.
That's my exact style.
Instead, I'm just going to try and place it on iDubbbz's circle of irony that we looked at. Now, this Balenciaga shirt is firmly in the post-irony camp, way at the end of the circle. They recognize that the design itself is simple and pedestrian, and that the message found within it is about as surface level and hokey as it gets. However, It has been imbued with the essence of luxury. That sounds like an absurd thing to say, right? Well, I mean, not so fast. It is a piece designed by one of the most respected fashion designers of our era, released by one of the most historic luxury fashion houses, produced with the best cotton money can buy in a high-end Portuguese factory, and boasting a multi-$100 price tag with an end destination of celebrity and style icons fits. Doesn't that elevate it above the Spencer's Gifts t-shirt? There's no right or wrong answer to that question, and that is what makes it post-ironic. You could see it as simply bad design, or you could see it as bad design that is made with the knowledge that it's bad, so that makes it funny. Or maybe the fact that it's so bad it's funny, and made with all the seriousness that goes into luxury fashion, make this piece go all the way around the circle and make it simply good. By the way, I'm going to be doing a lot of air quotes in this video. It just comes with the territory when you start talking about concepts like artist intent and interpretation. I mean, there's an entire universe of fashion designers who are crazy respected for making challenging clothing. Clothing that exists outside the bounds of good or bad. Comme des Garçons is one of the most respected fashion brands of all time, and they often make clothing that the average person would laugh out of the room. Tom Brown imbues humor and an avant-garde edge into his designs all the time. Is it fair to put these in a different category than the Balenciaga t-shirt? You know what? I have a couple pieces that illustrate this perfectly, so let's take a look. First up is this t-shirt from Vetements, designed by Demna Gvasalia, the same person who went on to design that Balenciaga shirt we were just talking about. This is, I think, the epitome of everything we've gone over in this video so far. At every point, it challenges our ideas of what makes a good piece of clothing. Most obviously is the slogan print on the front, much like the Spencer shirt. I'm a virgin, but this is an old t-shirt. It has the same spirit as the Spencer shirt, but is even less funny and almost doesn't even make sense. Like, what is that trying to say? Can you explain to me what that sentence means? Because I think I'd have trouble. Beyond that, you have this messy print. It's a polo shirt printed on a t-shirt. And I mean literally, it is a Polo Ralph Lauren shirt print. But the print doesn't cover the whole shirt, and you have these like white bits left over at the armpits and sides. At the back, the design splits, and you get a print of a different Vetements shirt on top of this one. And finally, you get the fit. It's the classic normcore polo type of look, but it's so oversized that the wearer ends up drowning in it. It's essentially impossible to look good in it, at least in most people's conception of what looking good means. But all of that leaves the question, is it good? Can it ever be good? I would say you're asking the wrong question. Instead of asking whether it's good, Vetements, the designers of the shirt, they want you to ask, is it luxury? Can something that looks like this, with this many layers of irony and this many layers of fashion rule breaking, be luxury? I think the only answer you can come to is that luxury, good, funny, stylish, meaningful, all of these things are and can only be in the eye of the beholder. See, there were all the air quotes. They really came out right there. So let's look at one more shirt from a smaller brand called For You. This is a brand that really sees themselves as creating wearable art, and for good reason. The pieces are created from more real or traditional works of fine art, and they're created with specific methods and in limited batches that raise the level of the artisanship. But for this video, I want to focus on the design of a single one of their pieces, the Imagine shirt. In this one, they're playing with so many themes. Of course, they're using the visual reference of a pharmaceutical logo. This is the first layer of irony, as these logos in general are some of the most anodyne pieces of graphic design known to man, not something that any modern artist would see as good in the fine art sense. And these pharma logos are also, of course, attached to some of the most evil companies in the world, so you know, there's that too. But then the next layer is right there in the name. Imagine with an E. Here they're referencing E, Molly, you know, whatever I can call it that won't get me demonetized. You know what I'm talking about. And E has been used both as a party drug, but also more and more recently as a legitimate treatment for PTSD and a host of other mental issues. If you go back in time, the government and Big Pharma completely wrote off psychedelic therapy in an extension of the drug war and the greater reefer madness ethos of the time. But now there's a profit incentive. This drug is being used in quote-unquote real therapeutic settings, and these companies are seeing dollar signs. So, is For You the brand condoning that? I highly doubt it, but there's also positivity in the idea that it will be available for people who need the help. And all of that, this entire crazy conceptual stew, is held within this seemingly bland and inoffensive fake pharmaceutical logo on this t-shirt. So through the language of post-irony, For You has found a way to Trojan horse their views about the drug war, about psychedelia, about rave culture, about drug wars and PTSD into this one graphic that at a glance would look more at home inside a Walgreens than on a runway. So is this design good? Again, still the wrong question, I think. It's about the meaning that's being held within this shell, both the meaning as intended by the creator and the meaning as interpreted by the wearer and viewer in the real world. So, post-irony in fashion. Where did we land? Any thoughts? It's a lot to take in, I know. And I mean, this is a fashion channel, so we gotta talk trends.
Trends.
Gotta spot those trends, baby. Trend spotting by Danny Boyle.
Let's go.
So, what happens next? What does post-irony look like? Well, going back to iDubbbz circle, after post-irony, you're back at the starting point, at the point of earnest truth. And I think we've seen that come to life at various points in the last few years. For example, normcore. That was a style that came out of modern designers earnestly and honestly looking at the style of 1990s Silicon Valley and Dilbert office drones, and they realized, hey, there's actually something here, not just as a point for ridicule. Even more recently, I think this is the case with Gorpcore. You saw an early ironic stage of it with 2010s hipsters and their fixed gear bikes and all that stuff, but then people started realizing, no, it's actually sensible and cool to wear clothes that are suited to real-life activities. So, there's my great pronouncement. The new trend is earnestness. I think what I'd like you to think about with post-ironic fashion is where this lands in the pantheon of avant-garde fashion more broadly, because this is a conversation that has been ongoing for as long as modern fashion has existed. And it seems like most people who care to think critically have pretty much universally landed on the idea that avant-garde fashion is important, that it can be good without looking good, that it's worthy of critical respect, that it deserves to be studied and taken seriously. But I kind of get the feeling that we're not there yet with post-ironic fashion, and I'm curious what you think the hump is there that people need to get over. Maybe it's the fact that a lot of it is adjacent to streetwear, and the industry has never fully reckoned with the infiltration of streetwear into runways? Or perhaps it's that post-ironic fashion appears to have these ties to mall fashion of the early 2000s and to modern meme culture that is just too hard for people who see themselves as serious people to take, well, seriously? I have a feeling that you're as confused as ever. I probably have your head spinning and you're having trouble figuring out anything about post-irony and how it relates to fashion, but I would say that's good, because that confusion, that lack of certainty, is exactly what it's all about.